can I warmly congratulate my friend and colleague, the Honourable Member for Mid Sussex, for securing this debate and for so brilliantly outlining the issues at the start. I pay tribute to her tireless campaigning, alongside the tireless campaigning of all the carers and parents who are here today and who aren't here today, who have been filling our inboxes and who can't afford to be here today because they are busy looking after these vulnerable and traumatised children who need our help. There have been many powerful and moving contributions today from different members of the House. I'd just like to address the Honourable Member for Cannock Chase directly. I salute him and his partner for stepping up to adopt, and I hope that they get the support they need from the ASGSF that they've applied for. But I was disappointed by his party political swipe during his speech, because until now, I think it is worth saying there's actually been cross-party consensus in all the debates that I've been in on this issue that the changes that were made in April were short-sighted and extremely damaging. And I don't think it's an accident that it was when I secured my urgent question back in April, the day after the fund had expired, that the Minister came forward and announced an extension to the fund. I don't think it's an accident that we're having this debate today, that a written ministerial statement has come out with this fig leaf of an extension of the fund into next year. So the reality is that, yes, there's been cross-party consensus, but it has been we, the Liberal Democrats, who have been leading the charge on this and dragged the Minister kicking and screaming to make the announcements. And I really hope that we don't end up being blindsided once again, like we were in April this year, that we were all welcoming the announcement in the chamber that day, and then quietly, in the middle of the Easter recess, we had the announcement snuck out that the fair access limits were going to be reduced, the assessment fund, the assessment grants were going to be slashed, and so was the match funding. These parents and carers and families deserve far, far better, and I really hope the ministers and officials have learnt the lessons from earlier this year. It is worth repeating and reminding ourselves of who we are talking about today, some of the most vulnerable children in our communities, who have suffered the most unimaginable trauma, including abuse and neglect, sometimes witnessing unspeakable violence in their homes. Their carers, both adoptive parents and kinship carers, have made the most amazing commitment to step up and provide a loving, stable home to help heal and give them a second chance in life. The impact of these short-sighted cuts in the grants have been utterly devastating. The decision has resulted in a backlog of applications that have delayed assessments and therapeutic support, leaving already deeply traumatised children with a heightened sense of abandonment. I received this email from a parent in June. They said, "My youngest daughter has recently had her sensory therapy put on hold for 2 months due to all the delays by the government. My daughter started her new therapy at the beginning of February this year, had 4 therapy sessions, and then had to stop due to the uncertainty around the funding. We were just starting to see real progress when the therapy stopped abruptly. It was what I can only describe as opening Pandora's box and violently slamming it shut again. The regression we saw was severe. We experienced behaviours, and in her words, including feral screaming, which our daughter had not displayed in over 4 years. This regression not only affected our youngest daughter, but also her older sister, who is also traumatised." The charity Home for Good and Safer Homes recently surveyed parents and carers to understand the impact of the recent changes to the fund. They found that the loss of therapeutic support is already affecting many families, particularly those without the means to pay privately, leading to increased inequality in access to services, with financial vulnerability closely linked to greater disruption. In mid-July, one adoption support provider reported that only 50% of their families waiting for support had any funding from the ASGSF in place at all. This has led to serious concerns about the impact on children's mental health, with the vast majority of parents and carers saying they're extremely concerned or very concerned that their children's mental health would be negatively affected. For some children and families, long periods without support have caused extreme difficulties. As well as the declines in mental health, suicidal thoughts, self-harming, school absence, and escalation of violence in the home. These are children whose lives have been characterised by loss and separation, for whom trusting and consistent relationships are vital. The cuts have meant that the Purple Elephant Project, which is now in the honourable members for Brentford-Knislewurst constituency, right on the border of mine, have reduced their yearly programme of support to just 26 weeks. 6 months is a long time in a child's life, and for some children and young people, gaps in therapy greatly risk their willingness to engage in therapy in the future. The government's failure to communicate their planned changes has also led to providers reporting substantial financial losses, particularly for small providers such as Purple Elephant. They are relying on crowdfunding and emergency funds to stay afloat. Some, including Purple Elephant, are already having to cut their staff, and they are concerned that some therapists will leave the profession altogether, something we cannot afford when we look at the scale of the mental health crisis, not just amongst children in adoptive and kinship care, but more broadly right across society. The irony and the frustration here, Madam Chair, is that the government has sabotaged a tool that works. An evaluation of the fund in 2022 found that at the end of funded support, the mental health difficulties of school-aged children improved, while there were also significant improvements in family functioning. 94% of parents say the fund is absolutely vital or very important to their family, and that it was a need that could not be met elsewhere. We know the ASGSF helps families stay together, prevents family placement breakdown. It also helps children to stay and thrive in school. One adoptive parent I met who's in my constituency said that she was very clear that her child would not have been able to stay in school without the supportive therapy provided by the ASGSF. And as we've already heard, there's anecdotal evidence of potential adopters being put off going through the process because of concerns of lack of post-adoption support. We know that for every child adopted, £1.3 million worth of value is created through improved outcomes from adoption, as well as lower financial costs of adoption compared to care. The economic case is unquestionable. And if this government, as it keeps telling us, and we've just had a minister in the House, in the main chamber, telling us, the Minister for Early Years, that giving the children the best start in life is one of this government's biggest priorities. If they really mean that, if they really want to break down barriers to opportunity, then the minister needs to understand the outrage and despair, not just of members here, but also of families and carers up and down the country, and that it has sabotaged a supremely effective fund. Now, aside from today's announcement, we know that there are rumours about the department potentially reforming the fund, and that there's been a paper released by Adoption England that proposes devolving funding to either regional adoption agencies or local authorities as grant. A whole host of organisations are publicly opposed to these proposals and are concerned the model will compromise fair and equitable access of funding for all children, regardless of where they live or the agency they've been adopted through. Furthermore, regional adoption agencies are typically only responsible for adoption services, and we're not quite sure what this would mean for those who are eligible to, who are special guardians or have child arrangement orders in place, how the funding would be split between kinship families and adoptive families. This government desperately needs to consult with families and sector experts. I note that today's written ministerial statement does allude to engagement, not before time, because they were not consulted or engaged with when the changes were made at Easter. I do believe, and I've told the Minister this both privately and publicly, that she and her department do deeply care, as I do and my honourable friends here do, about the lives of these children and families. But I think the failure so far in joined-up policy making and engagement is actually, these are being driven by the Treasury and not by her or her department. So if she needs help with the Treasury, who are desperate for savings, she has got support here on all sides of the chamber, and we will continue to bat for children up and down this country. In conclusion, Madam Chair, I would reiterate the calls that my honourable friend made at the start of this debate. We need to see a permanent ring-fence fund restored to the previous full amount in terms of the grants per child. That will mean extending and expanding the size of the fund, and I have told the Minister this before. She can find the money in the £46.5 million budget the department has for advertising, consultancy and marketing costs in the last year. I have told her that she should halve that budget and instead expand the ASGSF by 50% so that the fair access limits can be restored to what they were previously. There needs to be an end to the surprise annual announcements, and my honourable friend, the member for Carshalton and Wallington, has said children aren't adopted or taken into kinship care for one financial year. They are done. That is done for life and with love, and that should be honoured by this government. Then, I hope the government will start to engage properly with the sector and with families up and down the countries. And I ask that there is a 2-year moratorium, as my honourable friend has already asked for, on further changes so that reforms are evidence-based. It is incumbent on all of us as corporate parents to ensure our most vulnerable children are properly supported and being given given the best second chance in life, as many of these children are being offered. This is a tiny budget in the context of huge government spending, but it has a massive impact on those precious and fragile lives. It is time to think again. It is time to do far better. It's time we put children, who are our country's future, first.